Of all of the hidden identities in the Song of Ice and Fire, Quaithe is perhaps the most intriguing individual. Her appearance concealed, her advice cryptic, and her motives enigmatic, we know very little about Quaithe. Quaithe first shows up from Qarth in A Clash of Kings, along with XXD and Piat Pri, to offer Dany warnings and helpful advice. From that point, she continually shows up in Dany chapters, and appears throughout her various dreams and visions by using a glass candle, offering confusing advice and words of prophecy, which we see fulfilled on several occasions. In fact, retrospective analysis of Dany's fever dreams in A Game of Thrones imply that Quaithe may have been behind some of her earlier visions at this time as well. That is, Quaithe was influencing Dany's visions before Dany actually met Quaithe. I can't fully explain all of the evidence here, but Preston Jacobs and others have done a good job of demonstrating how Dany's visions in A Game of Thrones resemble her later visions sent by Quaithe. Alyssa Farman, the OG girl boss of Westeros, is quite the character. She was sailing her own ship by the age of 14, and at 16 was betrothed twice but scared off both men. She was a lover of animals, nature, and exploration. She is described as being quite well spoken and articulate. Essentially, Alyssa had out-Ashed Asha Greyjoy. Eventually, her brother, Andro Farman, was married to Dreamfire Rhaena. Alyssa came to love Rhaena Targaryen, and the two were as close as sisters, very likely very much closer. Alyssa had several years of adventures, but eventually found herself without a source of income. She turned to Rhaena for the money to buy a ship, but the latter turned her down, and thus she came to despise her old lover, as she was now stranded in Rhaena's court without a way to leave Dragonstone. Eventually, Rhaena gave in to Alyssa's persistent demands to leave, and she departed, but not before secretly stealing 3 of Rhaena's dragon eggs. Under the name Alice Westhill, she sailed to Pentos and eventually sold the dragon eggs to the Sea Lord of Braavos, using the money to buy the ship of her dreams, the Sunchaser. 2 years later, she hired a crew to come with her and set sail, exploring what would be west of Westeros. The 2 Hightower sons, Sir Eustace and Sir Norman Hightower, pledged their ships to her expedition. When the Patriarch of the Hightowers, Donal Hightower, caught wind of this, he attempted to detain Alyssa, but she slipped through his grasp. The 3 ships sailed south by southwest for several days, but were eventually caught in a storm, losing one of the Hightower ships and leaving the other badly damaged, where it was forced to return to Westeros. Alyssa continued west on the Sunchaser, and that was the last confirmed sighting of her. However, Corlys Velaryon later recounted that he saw the Sunchaser in Asshai by the Shadow. I have a video which goes more in depth into Alyssa's possible voyage, its route, and how long it may have taken, but simply put, it is possible to sail to Asshai from Westeros given the ship, supplies, and time frame that Alyssa had. But how does this relate to Quaithe? Well, all of it does. The background we know about Elissa Farman lines up with everything that we do know about Quaithe. Quaithe's most common words of advice, which she repeats to Daenerys on 3 separate occasions, are the warning, to go north you must journey south, to reach the west you must go east, to go forward you must go back, and to touch the light you must pass beneath the shadow. While the meaning of these words is an enduring mystery of the fandom, we can apply what we know of Alyssa's history to finesse some meaning out of her words. Going east to go west, if we take it literally, clearly implies that Dany must reflect Alyssa's voyage to return to Westeros. Same with going south to go north. Were Dany to sail east, she would need to go south to avoid the continent, that could ride an ocean current system towards the northern part, where the current sweeps her back down towards the Arbor. Seeing as Dany's long-term role may be to fight the threat of White Walkers, landing in the southern part of Westeros and later venturing north lines up with this passage. Passing beneath the shadow clearly refers to Asshai, the city by the shadow, which must be passed under to circumnavigate Planetos, and this is more guidance on reversing Alyssa's voyage. But what is the light? Well, I would argue that it's the Hightower. Not only is it the singular brightest light in the known ASOIAF world, barring astronomical bodies which Dany could not reach unless you want to go into sci-fi theories, it is the starting point for Alyssa's journey, and very likely where Dany's first landing in Westeros could be. Now there are a lot of links between Azor Ahai, Dany, Euron, the Hightowers, and Old Town, each of which consists of various theories or textual parallels, which could honestly be its own video, but I personally think that Old Town would be an excellent first landing spot for Daenerys. Elissa Farman would also have motive to help Dany as Quaithe. Her lover was Dany's ancestor, and she may wish to repay the love after their broken relationship. Or perhaps she just bears residual or continuing loyalty to House Targaryen. Quaithe alludes to the fact that young Griff is not a Targaryen, and while this isn't a definitive statement, it suggests that she is invested in wider Targaryen affairs and has a vested interest in watching out for the usurped house. Additionally, the 3 dragon eggs Daenerys has hatched are the very 3 dragon eggs that Alyssa Farman stole. Understanding Quaithe's Alyssa would be why she keeps telling Daenerys to remember who she is, frequently harkens back to the dragons, and wants to guide Dany towards Westeros. There are many other minor connections between Quaithe and Alyssa. Quaithe and Alyssa appear to be similar height, and the love of travel and nature lines up as well. For appearances, we obviously know little about Quaithe, but her eye color is described as wet and shiny, which lines up with Alyssa's deep blue eyes and characteristic love of the sea. Quaithe's words are exceedingly well chosen, and despite being cryptic, lines up with Alyssa's sharp mind and sharp wit. However, we see little of Quaithe, so these connections are tentative, but again, what we do know all lines up. We know Quaithe hails from Asshai, and while the city remains unseen and mysterious, the account of the Sun Chaser being sighted in Asshai makes it likely Alyssa spent time there, perhaps even residing there in the gap between Fire and Blood and the Song of Ice and Fire. Now there is one big problem here, and you don't need to be a genius to realize that Alyssa Farman would need to be well over 100 years old to still be alive by the time of a Game of Thrones. This is, admittedly, the weakest part of this theory, but can still be explained. We know Quaithe was from Asshai, Alyssa's last rumored location. The character from Asshai we know most about, Melisandre, almost certainly has been able to extend her lifespan, if not achieve biological immortality. While there are loads of theories about Asshai, some of which are really out there, some of which are really interesting, and some of which are both, such as the theory that it is a city comprised entirely of the undead or immortal, its strong connection to magic and the extension of life make it seem trivial that Alyssa would have been able to extend her life after spending several years in Asshai. We know Quaithe is very well versed in many forms of magic, so it is not a stretch to presume she is familiar with some form of minor or major life extension. This could explain why Quaithe wears her mask. Not only are all characters from Asshai very mysterious, Alyssa may have used dark magic to extend her lifespan, and now wishes to conceal her now deformed or otherworldly appearance. The theory that Quaithe learned life extension in Asshai is also a central tenet to the theory that Quaithe is Shiera's sea star. While this theory is possible, it is quite unlikely as Quaithe's eye color does match the mismatched blue and green eyes of Shiera. Shiera was also a big fan of ivory and lighter, white colors, viewing other colors as vulgar, and her wardrobe doesn't seem to match Quaithe's darker palettes of blacks and reds. Her heart-shaped face does also not fit, and this and other of Shiera's striking features would have likely been picked up by Dany, as Shiera was widely regarded as the most striking and beautiful woman of her generation. One could argue that she is using glamour, but there seems to be little or no motive for this, as it would be excessively cautious, and why wear the mask as well? Other theories abound that Quaithe is a faceless man, or a Shara Dane, or a time-traveling Daenerys, or perhaps somehow tied to Euron. All of these theories aren't without their individual merits and evidence, but the parallels and connections between Quaithe's words and motives, and Farman's actions in history, make me firmly believe that Quaithe is Alyssa Farman over these alternate theories. But what do you think? Please comment below. Additionally, please help me get this graph up a little bit more. It's super easy and free to just subscribe, and the amount of help it brings is substantial, as I have less than 150 subscribers. If you all enjoyed this video, I was thinking I could make this first of a series on hidden identities, talking about people like Cold Hands, Lamore, the Knight of the Laughing Tree, and Howland Reed, perhaps others. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you very much for watching, and do take care.